Well, hello everybody, and happy Thanksgiving to all of our friends south of the border. And because it is Thanksgiving that's coming up, guess what this week is? Well, it's Black Friday. It's no longer Black Friday, it's Black Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But anyways, what this week prompted me to do is basically look at what the prices are out there right now and to see if I could put together a couple of gaming builds. Now, look, I was doing this just for the fun of it, but it actually ended up inspiring me to do this video. Why? And that is because it turns out, basically against what I thought it might be, that right now is a great time to build a gaming PC. And there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, inventory levels right now of certain components are extremely high. Not only that, but new GPUs and CPUs have been launching basically all over the place. You've seen them all. And believe it or not, there's a glut of NAND and DRAM out there on the market right now. That makes for a perfect storm for Black Friday deals. So my goals here were pretty simple. Absolutely maximize frame rates above all else, but also try to avoid the usual quality of life stuff like not enough RAM or SSD space that affect your day-to-day computing experience. Anyways, I broke down the system cost into 3 categories, laser focused on gaming. $500, $1,000, and $1,500 US without the price of peripherals or a monitor, mind you. I'll also leave links down below where you can find every single one of these items, hopefully for the sale prices that I'm talking about right here. But if they sell out, look, I also want to have your guys' input because I want to have this as a community approach. If you guys see any other sales that you think can either replace some of these components or maybe supplement them, by all means, there's a comment thread down below. Let us all know. But one of the main things here that I wanted to highlight is that just a couple of months ago, building a $500 gaming PC without a discrete GPU was the way to go. But now you can actually fit a GPU into that price. But you know what's also a really good price? That is these cases from Fantex.
The new Eclipse is this. Don't be afraid of the light, it is all mesh from here, my friend. Just reach in for an easy install for anything in the front and look up into the clear sky for anything from the top. Open or close the doors to hide what you started with an all fanless and bright versions of the Eclipse available. The perfect event for now. In the future, no better feeling for you or the components. Hey, the new Eclipse G500A by Fantex. Check it out below.
So that out of the way, let's start off right away with the $500 build because it is really going to be forming that baseline for a lot of these budget builds, simply because it is headlined by a Ryzen 5000 series processor. These things are such good prices right now. In this case, it's the Ryzen 5 5500. With its 6 cores, 12 threads, and very good gaming performance for less than $100, it's an obvious choice these days for budget builds. It also comes with a box cooler, which is going to be used here. And if you're wondering, I wanted to avoid A320 motherboards and instead use something that had a bit more meat to it, both in terms of connectivity and power delivery headroom for those future CPU upgrades. The ASRock B450M Pro 4 R2 fits here perfectly, especially for the price. Meanwhile, memory is being handled by a Silicon Power 16GB DDR4 3200 kit, which has a great price for memory from a reputable company. And speaking of reputable companies, that's where the 1TB Silicon Power SSD falls into things, because right now the storage market's being flooded by off-brand Chinesium, and this drive combines great performance with known durability. And for the GPU, well, after the last few years of overpriced garbage, it turns out that with Black Friday deals, you can grab an RX 6600 for $210, and that goes down to about $190 after mail-in rebate. And honestly, this is a great GPU. And at this price, it just blows everything else out of the water. At 1080p, the 6600 can match the RTX 3060, and that card's going well over $300 these days. The case, well, to stick to the budget, I'm going with Roswell. This MATX case is pretty bare bones, but at least it doesn't look like an ugly, over-designed gamer's nightmare like so many others at this price point. It also includes a 400-watt power supply, which is plenty to power build that shouldn't pull more than 200 watts when gaming. Yeah, the PSU has ketchup mustard cables, but there isn't a side panel here, so who cares, right? And the total for all this is, well, after that $20 rebate, right on the money. But what if you had a couple more bucks to spend here? Well, the first thing I would probably do is upgrade that case and power supply. I really highly recommend these from Deepcool. and Corsair. The other thing I would probably do is maybe switch out that processor to a 5600 because it has additional cache, and that can really benefit you in 1080p gaming in certain scenarios. But either way, that 5500 is such a great deal. But anyways, let's move on to that $1,000 build. And I know that's probably where a lot of you guys are gonna end up. And this one is headlined by an RX 6800 XT, which used to cost over $1,000 all by itself. But now you can find deals like this ASRock card if you try hard enough. I mean, for $535 without a mail-in rebate, and even less with one, it's a steal considering the closest NVIDIA card is an RTX 3080 that's gonna cost you a small fortune. For the CPU and motherboard combo on this one, I'm going for the Ryzen 5 5600 and ASRock B550M RIPTIDE, since remember, this is all about maximizing frame rates. Oh, and cooling is handled by the ID Cooling SE214XT. You might remember this heatsink's big brother absolutely ran away with our budget CPU cooler crown. I'm also keeping memory pretty straightforward here with a kit of 16GB Team Group DDR4 3600 with OK timings. On the SSD front, we're moving up to a crucial P3 1TB, which is still a DRAM-less SSD, but from a more reputable manufacturer than some of the others. Meanwhile, the power supply is a basic but well-regarded 650-watt Corsair CXM series. And the case, well, at this price point, I'd say it's more about personal choice. But in my opinion, the current price for the Fractal Focus series makes it a winner here, since it's a solid mid-tower with a pair of included 140mm fans. And that makes the final cost for this build right now a little bit less than $1,000. And I guess if you want to save a few dollars here and there, you could probably go with like an RTX 3070. Those prices are heading below $500 these days. But what happens now when we step up another $500 to $1,500? And that is where things get interesting, because a whole other echelon of GPUs and CPUs start getting into this equation. So in this situation, I'm going with an RX 6900 XT because their prices have been falling through the floor lately. I mean, getting this level of GPU for under the $700 mark, well, it's a no-brainer, unless you care about ray tracing, and for that, you'll have to spend a hell of a lot more on the NVIDIA tax. And the CPU of choice here, well, it actually might surprise a couple of you. That is because it is the Ryzen 5 7600X, and I know I've been critiquing this thing over and over again because the processor was a little bit on the expensive side, but it was the platform cost that just went completely to ludicrous dimensions. But that has actually changed quite a bit in the last week. And yes, I would have also have loved to use the 5800X 3D here since it performs so well in gaming, but it's out of stock almost everywhere, and I don't want to recommend something that most of you guys just can't buy. Anyways, now you can grab a 7600X for under $250, which makes it a no-brainer here. And I'm pairing it up with one of my favorite coolers of all time, the Thermalright Peerless Assassin. Some decent AM5 motherboards are falling in price too. Personally, from a cost to features ratio, I like the PG RIPTIDE series from ASRock, like you've probably seen in the other builds here. I mean, look, if you want to grab a full-size ATX board for whatever reason, go right ahead. But you'll be paying a premium most of the time for absolutely nothing. You won't gain one single gaming frame rate from it. Memory for this system is a straightforward 32GB DDR5 5600 kit, and the SSD is this one. Now, before you turn up your noses at Solidim, they're probably one of the best kept secrets in the storage world right now. This is essentially Intel's SSD division that's been sold off to SK Hynix, so they have an impressive pedigree. The power supply is another Corsair CXM series, this time at 750 watts, and that Fractal Focus series makes a comeback here too. But hey, you get more RGB too with those two front fans. If you want to save a couple bucks, just use the non-RGB version of this case. Add all that up and it's a banging system that laser focuses on gaming for just $1,500, and you're getting the latest AM5 socket. So if you believe AMD, you'll be able to upgrade with new CPUs for years to come. And I know what you're asking yourselves right now, what happens if you wanted to go with the Intel side of this equation? Because up until just recently, the 13600K was basically beating the 7600X from a price to performance perspective. The fact of the matter though, right now, is that the 7600X is $45 cheaper. So basically putting a 13600KF into a build right now means that we're gonna have to cut a few things here and there. So let's take a look at that. So with the 13600K here, along with the same SSD, case, GPU, and power supply, I'm gonna add the Z690M PG RIPTIDE, which is about $10 more than the AM5 version. And that means, yes, we've got to find some savings somewhere. So I'm knocking back the cooler down to an AK400, which, based on my testing in the Intel cooler video, takes care of the 13600K without any problem in gaming. And yes, that still brings us a couple of bucks above that $1,500 budget, but this is still a great option for people who want to stay on the Intel side, or at least go with Intel. But I also wanted to do a little quick thing here for my fellow Canadians. The prices here in Canada have been absolutely atrocious for the last couple of years, and they're still quite a bit above what you're going to pay on the south side of the border. The thing is that Black Friday is affecting our prices too, so I wanted to give a go and build a $1,000 to $1,200 gaming PC with Canadian prices this time. So let's check that out too. And believe it or not, it's actually pretty close to the $1,000 build from south of the border. But on the positive side, less than 6 months ago, this would have cost almost double the amount. The only real difference here is the move to a 6700 XT instead of the 6800 XT, because damn, GPU prices are still pretty high here. There's a few other changes too, since a lot of the items on sale in the US simply aren't on sale here. Anyways, like usual, all the links will be in the description below for the retailers where I found these. Good luck, guys. So I guess that pretty much wraps things up, and I hope you really enjoyed this video. But before going, I wanted to leave you with one little thought, and it's something that I said at the very beginning of this video. Do the constructive thing. Constructive criticism is always great. So if you find any better prices, any other options for anything that you see in this video, go post down in the comments below. Be helpful, be constructive. Anyways, I'm Mike with Hardware Canucks. I hope you enjoyed this content, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, guys.